Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about The Last of Us Part 2, a brand new video game that's coming out next month that has been mired in controversy for the last few weeks now. This situation has been going on and on in the background as we've covered other stories here, and we chimed in up at the beginning a few times, but a lot has changed in the last few weeks. Basically, to sum things up though, The Last of Us Part 2 had big leaks a few weeks back, revealing a very progressive, very biased, and SJW-influenced story that's going to be in the video game. It's got a lesbian couple fighting off a trans villain who attacks the main character from the first game. Lots of main characters die. You even get to play as the alphabet person for the second half of the game. And needless to say, a lot of fans are worried. A lot of people are concerned it's going to be bad. It sounds terrible already. The story is certainly questionable, and this has led to a number of other developments. First of all, the leaks came out, and that led to a story about how a disgruntled employee leaked things because they weren't getting their payments from the company. This got covered up by the news agencies and the mainstream media who tried to back Naughty Dog and Sony and say, hey, this leak came from hackers. But a lot of people didn't believe that story either, because who would hack Sony? Is hacking really a better situation? I mean, how could you hack and steal all these multiple gigabytes, possibly terabytes of information about the game? And then, in addition, after the leak started spreading, Sony and Naughty Dog started copyright striking a lot of people's videos. They started going after the YouTube channels. They copyrighted tweets and images of their stuff, and this basically proved that the leaks were true. And it also showed that these companies are very progressive, because striking people down is what SJWs do. This is a left-wing tactic. They want to silence their opposition, take down their opponents. They don't want to play fair. They don't want to use both sides of the issue. They don't want both people to speak. They want to silence the opposition and take control of all the platforms they can. Now, the recent development on that front is a lot of the copyright strikes are starting to be released. That means these channels are getting back their videos, their posts, they're getting back their privileges to stream and stuff like that. And that's certainly a good thing. One notable point there was Geeks and Gamers is one I remember specifically saying they got back one of their videos, and they did a live stream a couple days ago to celebrate. They got all their privileges back on their channel. That's great. And that's happened for a number of other channels. And this is an amazing step, vindicating the people on our side, the people kind of against this SJW silliness, against this progressive company, kind of ruining the fun for everyone. They've ruined a very popular game series. They've also ruined a part of this year that was supposed to be looked forward to. We're supposed to be getting this game already, but it got delayed, and now it's coming out in June, but no one wants to play it anymore because it has this progressive BS, and it's just brought up a lot of issues and a lot of drama. And this is bringing us to our new story, because now we have some more proof that this company was progressive as hell. I mean, we knew this, we'd seen this, we'd heard about all the stories, we'd seen the leaks and the way things have been going. We had heard tales about Anita Sarkeesian, one of the biggest SJWs ever, influencing Neil Druckmann, the leader of the Last of Us team. So he's already admitted that, but now we have new proof about more details about how progressive this company truly is. This is an article that's called Naughty Dog level designer confirms studio is adamantly progressive as fans speculate Anita Sarkeesian influenced The Last of Us 2 development. This is something I just mentioned, and Anita Sarkeesian getting involved is definitely a bad sign, and we did a whole video about that and another article that referenced that. But this is another support to that theory, because now we have a level designer confirming that the studio is adamantly progressive. Now, one other thing to point out before we read on is we shouldn't be too surprised, since Naughty Dog is a company that's based in Santa Monica near Los Angeles, California. This is the most liberal state in our country. It's very progressive, very SJW, but it's also frustrating because they weren't always like this. Basically around 2016, things started to go downhill when Uncharted 4 came out, and they had these female characters kind of taking over, becoming these unstoppable badasses. They had a spin-off, and then that led to The Last of Us getting in development, and then now we're at where we are today. We see this is the gay kiss that came from the very first Last of Us tease that came at a E3 conference a few years back, and now we're talking about how the villain is trans, an alphabet person taking out our favorite lead character. And in addition, now we have a level designer giving us more details that I find very interesting. So let's read on and see where this goes. Amidst the backlash towards plot and design elements seen in the leaked footage of The Last of Us 2 and fan speculation that feminist critic Anita Sarkeesian influenced the game's development, a member of Naughty Dog's development team has confirmed that the studio promotes progressive political views. Following the leaks which showed Dinah's in-game model featuring a shrunken chest compared to her real model, the masculine featured Abby's role in Joel's death and her delivery of a brutal, graphic beating to Dinah and Ellie, and the use of generic, homophobic Christian cultists as core antagonists, among other coldly received narrative changes. Fans began to sift through publicly available media, from magazine interviews to massive tweet histories, in search of a supposed answer as to why the survival horror stories had seen such an extreme push towards pushing ham-fisted messages based heavily on political ideology. Okay, so before we get to the new stuff, we do have some other previous things to cover. First of all, Dinah's in-game model featuring a shrunken chest. That's something we've mentioned before here too, where a lot of times these SJWs, they want to make their female characters less attractive. They don't want them to be sexualized or appear appealing to the male gaze. They think that guys looking at hot girls is sexist for some reason, even though girls make themselves hot and they like the attention of guys, and this is the way the world has worked forever. Girls like to feel pretty, typically, but SJWs don't like that, and that's probably because they're very unattractive themselves, so they want to make other people less attractive, and that's what's happened with these girls in The Last of Us, and other video games have seen this too. There was actually another story about the Resident Evil remake that made their main character less attractive. There's been other video games where people have complained about the characters being too attractive. This is a complaint that's come up in anime as well. People complain about anime. SJWs complain that they're too sexualized and sexy and hot and cool. But this in Last of Us is interesting too, because I actually went into this. I've seen the character model and the real actor who played Dinah, this character, and yeah, she's actually a pretty girl. She has a YouTube channel and everything. She's actually some kind of up-and-coming actress. I've seen her before. I put her in a video before too when we talked about this, and it's just funny that they'll take that girl and make her just kind of more boxy. Like they take the curves of a woman and make them more straight and less breast and butt and just like really flat and just not appealing. They just want to make them more neutral, like gender neutral. And this again reminds me of other media that's done this before. Another example that comes to mind right here is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel had this brought up because Brie Larson, who played them, I mean, hate her as much as you want, she got really feminist and woke during that press campaign, but she is a fairly pretty girl. She could be actually very pretty when she wants to be, but unfortunately in the Captain Marvel movie, they dressed her down too. They made her really boxy. They gave her a uniform that was like very ill-fitting and took away all the curves like they're saying about Dinah here, and that's just the trend we're dealing with now. It's very lame. It's upsetting. It's not the end of the world, but it is kind of like, why can't we have hot chicks in our games and movies anymore? Another thing this reminds me of in the opposite direction is I've recently replayed a video game called Tomb Raider, very popular game series, by the way, but it was rebooted in 2013, and I was actually happily surprised that they still made the main character, Lara Croft, super hot, and she had, a full chest, great hair. She looked like a pretty woman. I guess that was a time before things got too PC. I wonder how the next games do with Lara Croft, but it is funny because now we're talking about a similar kind of adventure game and company with The Last of Us, and they're making their girls not hot, so that's not cool. We're not for that at all. In their exploration of various archives, fans rediscovered words of praise offered by Naughty Dog Vice President Neil Druckmann towards Sarkeesian's bad faith feminist-based video game critiques. During his keynote speech at the 2013 International Game Developers Association conference, Druckmann stated that he did not like what he saw in regards to female representation in video games, citing characters such as Metal Gear Solid 5's Quiet, Halo's Cortana, or Dead Alive's Ayame. He argued that developers and players solely sexualize, we objectify, and we reduce these female characters to less than they can be. In this next slide, Druckmann directly cites Sarkeesian's Tropes versus Women series. So yeah, this is the part, we talked about this in another video, this is the part where he praises Sarkeesian, like the worst SJW ever. He's the one going along with her sort of idea that women are objectified, they're sexualized, this is offensive and wrong. It's really not, though. It's just people liking to see hot women. Hot women like it when people give them attention, and if you want to play that character in a game, no big deal. And the idea that they're reduced to just being sexualized and pretty, it doesn't make sense, because they can be more than that. I mentioned a good example. Lara Croft Tomb Raider is a good example, because she's a pretty character who also has the smarts. She's also a great fighter, a skilled swordsman, a shooter. She has all these skills. She's a good Tomb Raider. She knows about the history and all that stuff. And she could be beautiful too. Like, there's no reason, like, beautiful shouldn't be a negative trait for a woman. Like, you can't, these SJWs are actually being offensive because they see a pretty woman and they're like, oh, that's all she has to offer is being pretty. So really, in a way, they're the ones kind of being sexist. They're being reverse sexist. Okay, next we're going to get to that game developer. I think his name's Hill. He says, Hill also confirmed that Naughty Dog is vocally and adamantly progressive, and deflected criticism towards the game's content as criticism of the studio's politics by claiming that these views were the reason that upset fans were targeting members of the game's design and narrative teams. Here's a little Twitter exchange. It says, is this a conspiracy? I guess some of the developers said they liked her videos. Neil did like 5 years ago. Our studio is vocally and adamantly progressive. Just glad they aren't targeting the women who are actually on the design and narrative team. So I think this Evan Hill is the game designer. That's his handle. And he's saying vocally and adamantly progressive. He's admitting the studio is that, and he's actually bragging about it. I thought this might have been a defector or someone that was going to complain about this progressivism, but it's not. It's a guy bragging about it, saying they did like these Anita Sarkeesian videos. Neil was in support of her like 5 years ago. This influenced The Last of Us, and it's what brought us to where we are today. It's rather insulting. It's rather offensive and terrible to see this great game series kind of go down the drain. And to see Naughty Dog go down the drain is troubling too. They've brought us great games over the years like Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, the Uncharted series, and now Last of Us, which seems to be losing all of us actually, and there might be no more Last of Us after part 2. When asked directly for confirmation on Sarkeesian's influence, Hill offered up a tired insult, classifying critics as chuds who were obsessive, creepy, and weird. Oh wow, an official response. So is any of this true though? I don't have an issue with the progressive message, but is there any credibility from these claims, or is it just weird? The chuds are just that obsessive, creepy, and weird. Okay, so basically the Hill guy is confirming that the place was super progressive, and The Last of Us has kind of failed. It's going to go downhill. It's going to sell. I'm sure some people will still play it. It'll still happen. It could even make money. It could be like another comparison to this movie. It could be like a Captain Marvel situation where there's all this drama online and a lot of detractors like us, but this is also, we're not necessarily in the biggest majority. Sure, a lot of people will see this information. A lot of people will notice it when it comes out, but most people aren't privy to like SJW, leftist, kind of anti stuff like we're talking about. So we'll see. It could still sell well. We're getting closer and closer to the release date, a few weeks away. And I just think all this confirmation shows that, yeah, Naughty Dog has fallen off. They tried to strike people and silence them and then had to retreat. And now we're getting more confirmation that they are as progressive as we thought. We already knew about the Anita Sarkeesian connection. Now we're talking about a game designer who is confirming they're vocally and vehemently progressive. Another thing to note is that progressivism isn't necessarily super bad on the surface. It could be good and seem nice to kind of, oh, I want to support women. I want to support minorities. I want to support the disenfranchised. Like, on the surface, it seems like a good idea, but mostly when it's actually practically happening, we're talking about these crazy liberals, these SJWs who attack our culture. They want to ruin things. They want to take over these video games. They want to make women more like men. They want to push and prop up alphabets while also taking down white males. They're very sexist, very offensive, anti-female in a lot of ways too. They like say women can't be beautiful. They say if you're beautiful, that's all you provide to the world. I don't buy that. I'm not into that, and I think you guys might agree too. That about wraps things up. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts on everything below. Tell me what you think. Are you going to play The Last of Us? Do you find these confirmations interesting? What will happen when the game comes out? Will it sell? Tell me what you think below. Also, make sure you leave a like to help support this video. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day. We'll see y'all next time.